Hello, welcome to this webinar, our Collective Transformation Gathering. I'm Rosie Aronson, the artist and author of the Wisdom Keepers Oracle Deck and Inner Guidebook. I've also been a spiritual and expressive arts counselor and teacher for many years, as well as an avid permission giver, pressure dissolver, and embracer of the unknown. My deepest intention today is to call in the Wisdom Keepers for guidance on behalf of all of us. If you've been drawn to this gathering, you may be feeling like me, just how paradoxical the times that we're living in are. So many wonderful things are happening. People are waking up all over the world. We're breaking free of old paradigms. We're reaching out to each other with enormous amounts of compassion, truth-telling courage, and collaborative synergy. At times it can feel like there's so much to hope for and to work towards. And then there are other times when we look around and it seems that all we see is suffering, oppression, and corruption. We're experiencing unprecedented levels of divisiveness, injustice, and sensory overload. And our capacity to open our hearts and cut through the noise has never been more tested. So if we're not only going to survive but thrive as a species, we're going to need to learn how to honor and respect our differences while acknowledging and embracing our interconnectedness. And we're also going to have to learn how to stay grounded, present, caring, even when we're in the middle of an overstimulating, anxiety-provoking, and mind and heart-numbing storm. In 2015, when I brought forth the 64 Faces of Awakening, and then the Wisdom Keepers Oracle deck that came after that, my deepest intention was to reclaim, reflect, and celebrate the soul of the world. I wanted to illuminate the incredible uniqueness of each person, while also inviting all of us into a deep, intimate experience that could transcend self and other. So the faces, or wisdom keepers, that I'll be sharing with you today embody the kind of peace, love, and understanding that I really long to see in the world, and imagine you do too, and to experience in myself. So in honor of this gathering, and in response to what I can easily call a collective crisis with its inherent danger and opportunity, I've prepared a collective transformation spread that I'd like to share with you. So holding you all in my heart, I called in 4 wisdom keepers. The first to represent the challenge that we're all facing together as a human family. The second to reflect the desired outcome and blessing that can grow out of this shared crisis. The third to reflect the shadow theme that's in most need of our attention and embrace if we're going to meet this crisis with grace. And finally, the fourth to show us the ultimate gift we have the potential to give birth to in ourselves and in the world around us. For each card, I've prepared some supportive and relevant questions for you to take with you into your private contemplations. I'll make sure you receive access to a PDF file with these exploratory questions. So please feel free to use them as journal prompts or as contemplations you bring into conversations with the people in your life. I encourage you to invite your friends, families, fellow activists, wisdom seekers, creative collaborators into your inquiry. If you're a professional wisdom keeper, I encourage you to find creative ways to bring these themes into your service. Share your evolving insights with your clients, students, followers, and encourage their contribution to the dialogue. My genuine hope is that these 4 wisdom keepers can inspire all of us into some kind of action so that we can engage with the world more deeply and from a place of empowerment and love. If you already have a Wisdom Keepers Oracle deck, you may notice that the questions that I'll be sharing in the PDF file are different than those that are provided in the Inner Guidebook. And this is because what we're doing here today is a collective reading. So I've made changes to the questions in order to address the larger collective transformation that we're working with together. Towards the end of our time, for those of you who feel drawn to continue working with the Wisdom Keepers, I'll be sharing some ways that you can learn more about the Wisdom Keepers Oracle deck. If you're not familiar with the Wisdom Keepers Oracle deck, let me just quickly share a few of the essential elements included in each of the 4 Wisdom Keeper cards that I'll be pulling during our time together. Each card, among other things, has a number. So each wisdom keeper is associated with one of the 64 archetypes, which can be related to the 64 hexagrams of the I Ching and some of its descendants, including the 64 gene keys. Each wisdom keeper is connected to 3 essential concepts: the shadow, gift, and siddhi. as used by Richard Rudd in the Gene Keys. For Richard Rudd, these define a spectrum of consciousness and refer to archetypal states that he correlates with the human experiential stages of survival, service, and surrender. The shadow has its roots in Jungian psychology, while siddhi is a Sanskrit term used in both Buddhist and Hindu mystical traditions. When we're worried about our survival and fear is in the driver's seat, we find ourselves in shadow territory. Our shadows can be expressed in repressive or reactive ways. When we're more oriented towards serving others and honoring ourselves than protecting and defending ourselves, we more naturally share our gifts with others and feel a sense of belonging in the world. When we have entered into a pure state of expansion and have completely surrendered our sense of separateness into the whole, we have entered the realm of the siddhi. Understanding how the gift, shadow, and siddhi are constantly interacting with each other throughout our lives can help us engage with the wisdom keepers and ourselves with greater compassion and patience. So this is all about awakening to the full spectrum of our human consciousness and potential so that we can become more gentle with ourselves, with other people, and begin to engage in our lives and the world around us with greater compassion and the capacity to see the bigger, deeper picture. You'll also notice that each face has been intentionally infused with universal yet specific symbols, reflecting the unique gifts embodied by the particular wisdom keeper. Each wisdom keeper that I'll share with you today has an archetypal yet deeply personal story. They also have a gift for you. They'll be bringing you a gift of wisdom and guidance. So even though the story is very specific to the wisdom keeper, the gift of wisdom has universal relevance. So let's just take a deep breath and start with a poem that was written by Prem Tanmayo, a dear friend and profound wisdom keeper in her own right. If you have your own deck or if you choose to get one in the future, you'll find this poem in the Wisdom Keeper's Inner Guidebook, and it's called The Human Face. The Human Face. The infinite writes her stories on the contours of the face. The ultimate reality shining forth from living mirrors. The seeker need only cast their gaze upon this holy countenance. Lost in open receptivity, absorbed in living light, all other disappears as we breathe alone, together, face to face with the mystery. Okay, so now let's begin our collective transformation spread. I shall pull the first card. The first wisdom keeper has come to us in order to represent the challenge that we're all facing together as a human family. This is the wisdom keeper of guidance. The real leader is the ultimate listener. The gift of guidance, the shadow of division, the siddhi of virtue. My wisdom story for you. When I was little, I trusted and admired the peace-loving elders in my community. As I grew, my people experienced more oppression from the outside world, and new leaders appeared who believed that it was time to fight fire with fire. At first I hid. I handed my authority over to the elders who maintained the peaceful ways of our ancestors. But when our community was attacked again and again, I handed my authority over to the leaders who fought back. I watched them become more and more like our enemies as divisiveness grew in our village. I was tired of giving my power away to dictator types who never bothered to ask what I thought or how I felt. I was tired of waiting for others to get it right. So I stepped forward as a leader and fought for my people and for justice everywhere. Over the years, I attracted many followers. Always certain I was on the right side of justice, a deep ambition grew in me that was fueled by an anger I hadn't yet owned. One day I scolded a young woman for not listening to me or following my advice. Her tears showed me I had lost my way. From that day on, I stopped leading and started listening. I discovered that every community member was wise and capable of making an important contribution to our people's path. Today, I am no longer fueled by a fear of oppression or the desire for external recognition. I don't need everyone to understand the way I lead or why I do what I do. What drives me now is a deep love of service and the belief that there is no such thing as a healthy community without healthy, free, and autonomous individuals. When I guide groups, I interfere as little as possible and always find that each person's wisdom and gifts just naturally rise to the surface. The less I push my agenda for the group, the deeper the communication, the more transformative the action, and the smoother the implementation of the vision becomes. There will be more and more leaders like me as we move into the future. I know this to be true. Thus, I am able to trust in humanity even during these turbulent times. My gift to you. I am here to share that true leadership is not about forcefully imposing an agenda or interfering in other people's lives. It's about lovingly empowering from behind the scenes. Be not driven by the fear of oppression or the love of power, but by a profound love of service. I am here to provide you with true guidance. I come to recognize the wise, free leader in you and to help you trust in your own direction. I am listening. So when we're looking at this card, let's remember that we're looking at the essence of the challenge that we're facing as a collective. And it's all about power. It's about the way we're using power or not using power, or allowing others to have power over us, or benefiting from the powers and privileges that we have that we may not even know we have. It's also about the ways that we aren't listening, not listening to each other, not listening to ourselves, and how this inability or unwillingness to listen is feeding the divisions in our world. If we're going to face this challenge as a collective, we need to find more balanced ways of working with and distributing power, of practicing power with as opposed to power over. And this requires self-empowerment as well as deep listening. It requires that we honor and celebrate the sovereignty of all beings, even those who are different from us. In the PDF file that I'll be providing you, you'll find questions about your relationship to power, where you give it away, and where you may be allowing others to give their power to you. About your relationship to listening, where you could be listening more to yourself and to others. What conditions make it difficult or easy to truly listen. You'll receive encouragement to move towards your own growth and service edge in relation to all that's happening in the world, and to explore areas where you could benefit from more guidance, as well as areas where your own guidance is needed, if you dare show up. So I really hope that you receive inspiration from these questions. Okay, so now it's time to pull card number 2 in honor of our collective transformation. Let's remember that this particular wisdom keeper that we'll be pulling is coming to us in order to reflect the desired outcome, the blessing and opportunity that can grow out of our shared collective crisis. What is the vision that we need to be holding together? What is it that we're working towards? Okay, so the second wisdom keeper that's come to us is the wisdom keeper of diplomacy. The gift of diplomacy, the shadow of conflict, the city of peace. My wisdom story. Where I grew up, tragedy and violence were all that we knew. Generations of my people had been traumatized and scarred, and conflict was everywhere, between West and East, modern and ancient, wealthy and poor, men and women. As a young girl, I had little power. I could neither speak out against the injustices I witnessed in the world, nor the abuses that happened at home. Always afraid of attack, my body was on constant state of alert. On the outside, I was over-attentive, the peacemaker. At any sign of conflict, I'd smooth out the waters. But on the inside, I was nervous and insecure. I feared all men and people that were different from my own. I put up walls around my heart. Once I lost control and lashed out, blaming my father for being a bully and my mother for being a victim, blaming entire nations for harming my people and my people for letting them. My tactless words cut like knives. Overcome with guilt and fear, I begged for forgiveness, spending the next weeks punishing myself and pleasing everyone around me. But the incessant pleasing, like the ruthless blaming, only made things worse. It wasn't until I was invited to visit a local peace group by my great aunt that everything changed. I'd never seen men and women sitting together, listening, supporting, and inspiring each other with such open hearts, honesty, and respect. They were neither guarded nor reactive, and for the first time I experienced the kind of peace and love I'd been longing for my whole life. In the safety of my great aunt's embrace, my defenses dropped. I finally faced the pain, powerlessness, and loneliness I'd been hiding from myself and everyone else. I became the leader of this organization for many years, but now I find that peace simply happens wherever I go. My gift to you: I am here to invite you to drop your defenses. Let down your guard. Stop fighting against your own humanity by refusing to see, feel, and accept your inner demons. There is a way to calm emotional waters in your intimate relationships and in the world without repressing or avoiding the truth. There is a way to dissolve seemingly insurmountable barriers to peace, to know precisely when it's time to act, when it's time to speak, and how to speak powerfully, yet from the heart. The true path of peace and diplomacy requires that you fearlessly look at and embrace your own weaknesses. Don't protect yourself from your deepest emotions, and you will find that your timing, communication, and relationships will improve. Naturally, others will want to confide in you, and you will sense just what is needed. Even in the most emotionally volatile situations, your very presence can have the power to shift the energy of a room or a relationship from one of conflict to peace. Wow, so what a beautiful outcome. Can you imagine a world where everyone is willing and able to drop our defenses and just stop the fighting and give up on having to be right, on having to have our own perspectives continually validated and understood? Let's just for a moment envision a world where everyone, no matter our political, religious, cultural, sexual orientation, just let down our protections, just took some time to explore and own the shadows within us and felt our feelings fully and with compassion and patience. Imagine that we all, world leaders included, took a breath before giving into the temptation to speak our truth with a kind of charge or defensiveness and reactivity that cements division in the world. And instead we found ways to stay present, relaxed in our bodies, despite the emotional turbulence we also feel and the turbulence all around us. Imagine that instead of focusing our minds on what everyone else is doing right or not doing right, or on everything we ourselves are doing wrong or could be doing better, we could just show up as human beings who embrace our humanness as well as the humanity of others. We could find ways to respond to what's happening in the world, to speak our truth, but with sensitivity, strength, and impeccable timing. Imagine a world where true diplomacy, downing walls, not erecting them, and finding common ground is much more important to all of us than being right or righteous. Let's just take a moment to imagine this world together. In the Questions for Contemplation PDF file that I'll be sharing with you, you'll find invitations to deepen your exploration of the themes of peacemaking and conflict. And you'll be asked to look compassionately at areas in your life where it's particularly hard for you, to avoid feeling defensive or guarded, times when you find yourself getting easily caught in people-pleasing patterns, places where there's room for you to be more honest, more transparent, more generous with your truth, as well as your vulnerability. And you'll be asked to explore what it really means to take responsibility for your feelings and core values, and how you can speak about them in ways that dissolve conflict as opposed to amplify it. I really hope that you find these questions helpful, whether you use them only for yourself or whether you choose to bring them into your relationships or service in the world. So remember that this Wisdom Keeper has come to us in order to reflect the shadow theme that's most in need of our attention right now. If we're to meet our current collective crisis with grace, to turn it into an opportunity for transformation, then this is the shadow we're going to need to face more than any other, and we're going to need to embrace it and transform it. Gift, revolution, shadow of reaction, city of rebirth. My wisdom story. I was born a passionate, sensitive idealist. Though my family was relatively liberal, my parents were not passionate people. They'd ignore anything for the sake of harmony, which brought out the hypocrisy detector in me. My mother identified as a feminist, but she still made herself small, and my father let her. My parents considered themselves open-minded, but I saw the look on their faces when I brought home romantic partners of a different race, ethnicity, or gender than expected. Our neighborhood prided itself on its progressive politics, but it also subtly discouraged certain people from moving in, rationalized wars, and dehumanized others. It was the inertness and denial that angered me the most. Beneath the anger was hurt. How could they not see what I saw or feel what I felt? When I confronted my parents and they refused to own their biases, we'd have huge fights. I went off to college. My mind spun and my heart broke as I learned about the plight of so many oppressed peoples. I seethed when I witnessed any kind of systemic marginalization or institutional oppression. For years I hung out with like-minded activists and judged my parents and most people for not getting it. The more staunchly I fought for peace, the more my personal life was rife with conflict. If I detected a drop of racist blood in my romantic partners, I dropped them. It wasn't until my best friend divorced me, calling me the most reactionary person she'd ever met, that I woke up. Losing her was devastating, but also a gift. All this time, as I divided up the world into good and ignorant and rejected people left and right, I was desperately trying to avoid being rejected. My fear of rejection had caused me to shut out so many people just because their worldview was different than mine. It took time to move through the layers of humiliation, guilt, and regret. Only when I was able to forgive myself could I begin to repair my personal relationships. Finally, I understood in my heart just how deep our human tendency is to split the world into black and white, us and them. This realization released a creativity in me I never knew was there. Now, instead of rejecting the old world, I channel all my love and energy into envisioning and co-creating a new one. My approach to the peace movement has become delightfully peaceful. My gift to you. Welcome to the peaceful revolution. If you long to bring harmony to your community, begin by being patient, gentle, and compassionate with yourself. Give your feelings time, space, and plenty of creative outlets, but do not judge them, for when you do, you create an internal pressure that intensifies the feelings and the impulse to act them out. Rejecting yourself only makes it more difficult to see objectively, soften the heart, understand the other, and see possibilities for resolution. If you must rebel, then rebel against your inner impulse to attack anyone. When you resist the urge to react based on emotions or to be violent towards yourself, you're doing your part to end violence in the world. Be revolutionary, not reactionary. Interesting. So again, we're being invited to be gentle with ourselves and to understand at a very deep level that if we want to make this world a more peaceful place, we have to embody peace from the inside out. One of the things I love most about this Wisdom Keeper is the way she helps us understand the dangers of self-judgment. How when we don't allow ourselves to feel what we feel, if we push away any aspect of our genuine internal experience, if we cultivate an unfriendly environment inside of ourselves, then this actually builds up pressure inside that makes it really hard not to be reactive. And she's telling us that if we can't practice self-compassion, it's not possible to be truly compassionate to anyone else, especially those who are different from us. And especially when we ourselves are feeling judged or attacked by their worldviews. We can't even see them clearly anymore. The other thing I love about her is her invitation to give our internal experiences space by engaging in creativity. And while it may not be for the benefit of humanity in our world if we rage at our neighbor who has different political views than we do, it may be beneficial if we pour that emotional intensity into a poem, dance, painting, or piece of creative writing. There are so many ways to embrace the charge that we feel without doing harm. And when we let ourselves truly release and see and feel what's happening inside of us, energy is freed to deal more directly and constructively with other people. So this isn't about sublimating all of our ideals away into some private art form. It's about owning, moving, transforming the energy. So when it's time to go out into the world and make a contribution or speak our truth, we bring a friendly or at least much less charged inner environment into any environment we enter. And this allows our sight, our insight, our contribution to be more constructive and caring. And that's what it's all about. As with the other cards, the PDF provided is going to offer you questions to contemplate and bring into your everyday life and relationships. So you're going to have the chance to explore your relationship to harmony as well as honesty. You'll get to look at the ways you might be rejecting others before they have a chance to reject you, and how that tendency might be impacting your life and your ability to impact the world around you effectively. You'll also receive encouragement to embrace your feelings, as well as to find creative ways to give them expression. So this is our final Wisdom Keeper for our Collective Transformation spread. This Wisdom Keeper comes to us with the intention of showing us the ultimate gift that we as a collective have the potential to cultivate and bring into the world around us. The gift of humanity, the shadow of turbulence, the city of compassion. My wisdom story. The world expected my father to be a bad seed, so he became one. He cheated on my mother, had a bad temper, and created chaos wherever he went. Like many of the men in our neighborhood, he was reckless, always pushing the limit, getting into trouble, and attracting crisis after crisis. He didn't mean to hurt us, which is probably why he hid so much from us, and why he begged for forgiveness when my mother and grandmother finally kicked him out. My mother and grandmother were strong women who did their best to raise and protect me. Their task wasn't easy, given our turbulent neighborhood, where the police frightened us as much as the gangs. I witnessed more tragedies than a young boy ever should. I also watched the news and saw how men like my father were perceived and treated. I promised myself I'd never be like him or cause the pain he caused. As a teen, if I felt anger or lust, I'd go with my grandmother to church and pray for my sins to be taken away. But over time, the stress got to me, and my nervousness gave me tics. Though inside I was sensitive and caring, I avoided eye contact with people and appeared shifty. I was hard to reach and had few friends, although there was one girl in my church who I secretly fancied. Too shy to approach her, I followed her home one day, hid in the bushes, and peeked in her window. She saw someone in the bushes and called the police. Imagine the shame I felt when my poor mother and grandmother had to come to the jail and bail me out. The charges were dropped as soon as the girl discovered who it was, but I was still required to meet with a social worker. Something in his eyes reassured me he'd been there. He knew suffering deep in his bones. He didn't just see the terror, shame, or nervousness in me. He saw the good seed. It was a strange and amazing experience to have a man encourage me to talk about my feelings. I knew instantly that I'd one day come to do exactly what he did. I'd see the good seed in everyone I met. I'd look straight into their eyes and let them know with my whole heart that they were okay exactly how they were, no matter how they felt, what they looked like, or where they came from. My gift to you. I come to celebrate your humanity, to remind you of your innate goodness, and to reassure you that there is no feeling in you that is inherently wrong or bad. No matter what you've done or experienced in life, you are innocent at your core. What matters now is not what you feel, but what you do with your feelings. I ask you, please don't reject your feelings or react to them. Simply acknowledge and embrace any emotional turbulence within you with compassion. Nervousness is only a sign that you have some feelings that need to be seen and embraced. Don't run from your pain, for along with your pain comes a great deal of pleasure. Oh, wow. Each of these wisdom keepers and their inherent messages feel so connected to me. Again, we're hearing, don't reject yourself. Don't deny or make wrong your feelings. It's okay that we're feeling emotionally upset or nervous or anxious. How could we possibly be living in our world today without feeling some kind of emotional turbulence? This wisdom keeper is saying that this is actually to be expected. It's okay. Emotional turbulence can even be healthy if we don't run away from it. It can be productive, even pleasurable, as counterintuitive as that may seem. What matters most here is that we remember our own innate goodness, because when we do this deep down, we're so much more able to see the innate goodness in others. even those who've forgotten their own goodness because of the conditioning that they've received, or the injustices and oppression that they've experienced, or the ignorance that they've inherited. Our gift to the world is our ultimate ability to see humanity in everyone we meet, even when it's hard, especially when we feel emotionally uncomfortable. Our gift to the world is our willingness not to run away from our own pain, and our willingness to entertain the possibility that when we stop doing that, whether we do it through projecting negativity onto others or distracting ourselves with TV, Facebook, work, alcohol, sex, whatever addictive tendencies we have, we can actually increase humanity's capacity to bring compassion and pleasure to the world. And boy, does our world need that. As with the other cards, you're going to find questions for explorations in the PDF file provided. You'll be invited to explore the places in your own life where you're feeling and perhaps avoiding emotional turbulence, and how that might be impacting your ability to show up with acceptance, compassion, and a willingness to see the goodness of others. You'll be invited to think of the people in your life who've been able to see your goodness even when you couldn't see it yourself, and to find ways to become someone who can do this for even more others, even when it's hard. Okay, so that was our collective transformation spread. A deep thank you to the wisdom keeper of guidance and virtue, and of peace and diplomacy, and of peaceful revolution and rebirth, and of humanity and compassion. I truly hope that these 4 wisdom keepers who've come to us today have spoken to you personally and provided you with love and insight and the encouragement you need to meet our shared challenges with authenticity, passion, and grace. Remember to check out the questions for contemplation that I've mentioned throughout this webinar. I put together for you in the PDF file. Bring them with you into your contemplations, your relationships, your conversations, into your actions. For any of you who may feel drawn to going a bit deeper, I'd like to share with you about an upcoming online course that I'm creating called the Wisdom Keepers Wheel of Integrity. This is going to be a 4-part course. Everyone who participates in this one is going to be working with their own Wisdom Keepers Oracle deck throughout the whole class. So we'll begin by making sure that everyone has one, and also that they receive a good introduction to their deck. I really love helping people develop a personal relationship with the Wisdom Keepers. And then we're going to go on a journey together using our own decks. Here, each of us are going to be creating our own wisdom wheel of integrity. In other words, we'll be calling in a unique council of 4 wisdom keepers who will be there to guide us in finding our own unique way of understanding and expressing integrity in our own lives. Because what integrity looks and feels like to me isn't necessarily what it's going to look and feel like to you. Each wisdom keeper is going to stand for an essential aspect of integrity, such as courage, kindness, healthy boundaries, and wisdom. I've chosen to focus on the theme of integrity because I can think a few things we need to cultivate more than that. During these super intense and in many ways frightening times, it can be so easy to lose our center, right? And whether we're getting lost in a battle for survival, or checking out in the guise of spirituality, or going to sleep as global citizens out of sheer overwhelm, or feeling pressured by others to respond in ways that don't really feel authentic to us, we can come out of alignment with our integrity. I found 2 definitions of integrity in the dictionary. One is the quality of being honest and having strong moral principles, moral uprightness. And the other is the state of being whole and undivided. What a beautiful paradox, right? One that the wisdom keepers, I think, are especially qualified to teach us how to hold and walk together. When we're living in integrity, we're able to take a stand for what and who we care about, without closing our hearts down to those who think or feel differently from us. When we're living in integrity, we're able to see clearly the unfortunate consequences of us versus them thinking and survival-based reactivity without getting swept up by the strong currents of our own judging minds. When we're living in integrity, we're able to discern between a grounded embodiment of our deepest spiritual values and a feel-good spiritual bypass. When we're living in integrity, we're much better able to help others live in their integrity because we're not imposing our way on them. As wisdom keepers in training, we all get to learn from each other, because in the end, the only way our planet can achieve balance and wholeness is if each of us come authentically into our own personal integrity. This is what these 4 wisdom keepers in our collective transformation spread have been telling us in each their own way. So I'm looking so much forward to offering this class and to making it possible for the wisdom keepers to support participants as they uncover the alchemy and wisdom of their own integrity dance and share what they learn with the people in their life and the world. And finally, I'd like to close with a video I thought you might enjoy, given the themes that we've been exploring here together. In 2017, I had the great honor of bringing the 64 Faces of Awakening, or Wisdom Keepers, to the Living Arts Playback Theater Ensemble's rehearsal in Oakland, California. And I had no idea what to expect when I came to the rehearsal. I just brought some printed out images of the Wisdom Keepers and a willingness to share my story. And I was so profoundly moved by the improvised reflections that emerged during our time together that I felt compelled to share some of them with you today and here. And honestly, I didn't expect that they would give me and the Wisdom Keepers so much of their precious time. So if I seem a little shy or awkward, that's because I actually was. So I'll just embrace that. Okay. The Living Arts Playback Theater Ensemble is a troupe of improvisational actors and musicians who play back personal stories shared by audience members in ways that both honor and illuminate the original experience. This was created by Armand Volkas, a psychotherapist, drama therapist, and beloved mentor friend of mine. This wonderful theater ensemble, in collaboration with Healing the Wounds of History Project, has received international acclaim for its work in bringing groups in conflict together, such as Germans and Jews, Palestinians and Israelis, Japanese, Chinese, Koreans, on their own legacy of World War II, and Armenians and Turks. It goes on and on. So what I'll be sharing you here is the second performance of the Living Arts Playback Theater Ensemble in response to the story of the Wisdom Keeper of humanity and compassion.
These beings put us into such a transpersonal place. It's so beautiful. Yeah. Do you have anything else you want to share and for us to witness, and I guess for the world to witness? So was there one, was it a rainy day? Was it you were sitting in your parlor and there were lightning outside, and somebody knocked at the door? Is there?
I don't know if I can tell a story in that way. I mean, I can say that one at the end came during the time when the Black Lives Matters movement was really taking shape, and I was feeling very sad about some of the things that were happening, and also some hope around some of the movement that was gathering steam and momentum. And now, today, I can see how far we have yet to go. So there's there's a part of me that, and this man, can I tell his story?
Yeah, okay, sure. Do you want to?
Yeah, he's that one over there.
Do you want to? Okay.
So he was a young black man who grew up in an urban setting without very much hope. And he was as afraid of the police as he was of the violence in his neighborhood. He was being raised by his mother and his grandmother, and his father had really struggled because his father was being perceived as a bad seed. And this young man was actually a very, very sweet boy, very innocent, but very shy. And I don't have to get into all the details here, but he got into a situation where a young girl thought that he was dangerous and looking at her and called the police on him. And he ended up connecting with a social worker who got a sense of his story. And that social worker was a black man who had been through it and had a great deal of compassion in his heart. And he saw the good seed in him. And because of that, his whole life kind of evolved from there, and he became someone who was determined to see the good seed in everyone, to see that we all have innate goodness inside of us, no matter what color of our skin, no matter how the society perceives us, no matter how we're presented, no matter how much ism there is in the world.
Okay. Let's watch.
It's a barren landscape. It's bleak, but it only takes one seed, one tiny seed to grow a plant, to grow a movement, to spread an idea. And then from one seed, you have a forest.
I want to be a father. I want to show my boy what it's like, how it feels to be a black man in America. But they look at me and they call me a bad seed. They look at me as a black man in this country, someone to be afraid of, someone to be hunted, someone who's not worthy to be a father, to be a citizen. They say I'm just a bad seed.
No, I need you on the other side, sir. I can't look at you. I can't look at you in the eye because I can't realize what I don't want to see in myself. I need you to go on the other side, sir. No. See, this is where we end. This is where we end. I can't have you crossing over into my space and my land and my feelings and my privilege and my understanding of what it means to be me. I need you over there, sir. And if you won't stay over there, I'm gonna get all of the powers I can possibly find to keep me from feeling uncomfortable, sir. Stop. Stay on your side. Stay away from my feeling.
I want to come out, but it's not safe. I want to bring out my love. But I've been taught that it's not good enough. That I'm not good enough. to show me that my love is good enough.
I just want to care
No,
for my son.
No, sir. I need you to stay
One
on your side.
I want to show him what it's like to be a black
I'm
man
going to let you
in America.
to me.
One
Not
seed.
going to let you close to mine.
A single
That I'm
idea.
not a bad seed.
A seed
He's
can
not
grow into an entire forest.
a bad seed. No. He's my son.
A single seed.
Such a deep story. Thank you.
You did more justice to it than I did. Yeah, thank you very much.